Our lovely guest this evening is Miss Jian Bland, who is representing New Brunswick Tomorrow. So Jian, welcome officially.
Thank you. Thank you, Aquaus. It's always good to be with you. I'm excited. I'm energized for our conversation.
Absolutely. So let's start off with who you are, your background, your role at NBT, as well as how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Yes. So I'm a Rutgers alum. So New Brunswick Scarlet Knights in the house.
No doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. After I graduated from Rutgers, I started working with the Civic League of Greater New Brunswick. I was the facilitator over at the Paul Robeson Community School for the Arts. Shortly thereafter, I also started working with the New Brunswick Education Foundation with Emmanuel Ford, Bobby Brown, and Maria Alvarez, where I ran the Innovative Teacher Grant Program. And so we helped to bring resources in to the community via dollars that we allocated to grant projects that teachers wanted to do and pilot really exciting, innovative things that maybe they weren't ready to bring to the district yet, but that they were definitely ready to kind of pioneer in the classroom. And so that was definitely a great experience, got my feet wet there, learned a lot about grant writing, philanthropy, and just met a lot of really awesome people here in New Brunswick. And then shortly thereafter, I found myself at New Brunswick Tomorrow as the Director of Youth Services over at NBT. And I've been there now. Tomorrow will make my 2-year anniversary.
Wow, congrats. Tomorrow. That's
Thank you.
crazy.
Yeah, no, it really flew. It's crazy.
So tell us about your role at New Brunswick Tomorrow as a community overseeing as a director of community youth development, correct?
Yes.
What is your role exactly from day to day? How would you describe that?
So my role essentially is to do all that I can for New Brunswick's young people. So
All
in
right.
essence, if you're between the ages of 0 to 21, my job is to bring as many resources, to bring as many people, to do everything I can to advocate for you, both in school and outside of school. And so that means that I work closely with the district. We have programs at 5 of the schools in New Brunswick, but it also means that I work closely with community-based organizations like PRAB, the Youth Advocate Program, the New Jersey Department of Children and Families, so government organizations, and also with corporations like Johnson and Johnson to try and help aggregate resources and bring them in the community to the extent and the efforts that we can to help our young people succeed.
Got it. And what does that exactly look like from a programmatic standpoint? You know, what is the importance of those programs that you help to run and oversee at NBT?
So I think it really starts with our youth continuum of care. And so we have a 5-pillar youth continuum of care that starts with kids being born healthy, then them being ready for school, them staying in school, them graduating and becoming self-sufficient adults, and doing all of that in a healthy environment. And so to that extent, our programs target our 0 to 3, 0 to 5 population, our K-12 population, and exceedingly more in the last maybe year or so, our 16 to 21, 18 to 21 population who are out of school, who we're trying now to do a lot more for and support them in different ways to make sure that once they graduate from New Brunswick High School or P-Tech or Health Sciences, that we're still maintaining that touch with our 18 to 21-year-old population.
Got it. And within that spectrum, this question is just coming to mind now. Within that spectrum, are there any particular pain points in regards to, okay, from this age to this age, we're doing pretty good, but from this age to this age, this is where some challenges lie, and we need to overcome some hurdles here?
Absolutely. I would say on the margins, I think K-12, we do a pretty good job. But 0 to 5 and 18 to 21, I definitely think those are pain points. I think they're harder to reach populations. You know, they're not necessarily in school, so we don't necessarily have them as a captive audience.
Yeah.
But and so it takes a bit more, it takes a bit more. But I think to that end, it's that much more important that we do connect with those groups because they are on the margins. They're easy to forget. And so we want to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to support those families, those students, and certainly those young people.
And what are some ways you go about engaging and connecting with those two sectors?
I think it really starts with partnership and collaboration.
All right.
At MBT, I think the Stanford Social Innovation Review, they have a model of collective impact. And so I think when I think about how we can really engage those populations, I think about these big adaptive problems, right? The ones that no single entity can solve. They don't have the resources, they don't have the authority to solve them. And so it's going to take some collaboration. And so I think about, those five pillars: the common agenda, the shared measurement systems, the mutually reinforcing activities, the continuous communication, and the backbone organization. Sometimes New Brunswick Tomorrow serves in that role, and sometimes we don't. And so I think when I think about those five pillars of collective impact, that's how we do all of our work, not just the work on the margins, but I think it's that much more important on the margins, specifically because they're harder to reach populations, and we have to be that much more purposeful and intentional about how we really engage with those families.
So to take that to a local level with collaboration and partnership, I know we spoke about this earlier this week. Who are some local partners in regards to here in New Brunswick, and what do those partnerships and collaborations look like, if you will be able to provide that information?
Sure, yes. So I think really at the heart of New Brunswick Tomorrow is a convening agency, an agency that's really looking to bring together seemingly disparate parts of the city to further a common goal or vision. And so just from the youth space alone, our programs, we partner on the school-based youth services program with the youth advocate program. And so we run 4 programs in New Brunswick High School, the McKinley School, Lord Sterling, and the Roosevelt School. And so those programs are aimed at mental health, case management, academic resources. And so it's a wraparound holistic approach that we take to really engage students, making sure that they're reaching their educational, enrichment, and life goals. And so we partner with youth advocate program to run that. We also partner with PRAB to run the Parent Infant Care Center, where we want to make sure that our teen parents still get a chance to graduate from high school despite any external challenges. And so we have an on-site daycare at New Brunswick High School where we provide parenting assistance, we provide free daycare, case management, all in an effort to make sure that nothing hinders them from being able to accomplish their educational goals. We also run a family-friendly center out of the Redshaw School, and we partner with the city of New Brunswick on that program. And so all of these are done in collaboration with the district, the New Brunswick Board of Education, and with the Department of Children and Families. And so just at a very high level, those are kind of 3 or 4 organizations that we partner with just in the youth space. But across our other program areas, we also have an array of partners.
Got it. Just out of curiosity, what are some of your other program areas?
In the youth space or in other spaces?
In other spaces.
So we also do a lot of work around health. So access to health, preventative health, messaging around health. And that happens predominantly through our healthy housing work, through our Live Well platform, through our Build grants. And then we do a lot of neighborhood revitalization work. So that's our Esperanza neighborhood project, where we have our community health ambassadors. And so we looked at, the city. I think New Brunswick Tomorrow's history kind of comes into play here, where it was, in essence, the brainchild organization of Johnson & Johnson in 1975, when they decided to stay in headquarters or keep their headquarters here in New Brunswick. But they wanted a social impact organization that was really going to speak to the social and economic issues in the city. And out of that was born an interest in youth and making sure that our young people have the opportunities that they deserve in health, making sure that if Johnson & Johnson, of all companies, was going to be headquartered here, that we definitely had health as a priority. And in neighborhood building, rebuilding neighborhoods, strengthening neighborhoods, and making sure that there was communication between neighborhoods.
Got it. So speaking of neighborhoods and youth, society, all of the racial tension and turmoil as of late across the country, what would you say is the importance of community organizations such as New Brunswick Tomorrow, such as the Civic League, in regards to the conversation pertaining to racial inequity?
I think the importance of it cannot be overstated. I do. I think that community organizations, I mean, a lot of times we talk about broad sweeping changes, and I think those are necessary, but I also think that community by community, we can start to see real progress. And so when we think about community-based organizations and the work that they do, it's messy, right? People are messy. Progress is not always linear, but I think that to the extent that community-based organizations do not succumb to complacency, and understand that we are living through a very interesting moment right now, a moment that it almost feels like a second civil rights movement. And so I think that we need to pay attention. I think we need to be vocal. I think we need to call out and enroll others in our vision, and to make sure that once the trends are gone, long gone, once the momentum has ebbed and flowed, that our commitment to racial equity does not change. And so I think that largely that means enrolling others into our vision, other community-based organizations, other residents, corporations, institutions, and making sure that we don't include complacency anywhere in our mindset, but that we stay the course, that we are resolute in making sure that our tomorrow for our kids looks a lot better than our todays and our yesterdays.
Hence New Brunswick Tomorrow.
New Brunswick Tomorrow.
So we have a question from Sean. Before we get to that, I heard you mention earlier goals, and then I just heard you mention vision. And what comes to mind for me is, well, really what are our shared goals and shared vision? So I know you being in a lot of meetings, sitting with a lot of stakeholders, sitting at a lot of tables, there has to be some patterns in regards to the conversations that are happening from table to table, organization to organization. Here in the city of New Brunswick, let's just focus on what we can do locally. What do you feel to date either is or should be our shared vision?
That's a great question, Aquaus. I think, to your point, patterns do emerge. I think by and large, people want to feel safe in their communities. I think they want to feel accepted. I think they want to feel like their children have opportunities that they didn't have. And I think they want to feel like they can provide for their families. And so when I think about it, I think about income equality. I think about racial equity. I think about educational progress and reform. I think about housing, all of these social determinants that really comprise the quality of our lives. These are quality of life issues. And so I think by and large, everyone wants to have a quality of life that they can be proud of, a community that they can feel good in. And I think that they want for their kids to feel the same and feel like you don't have to leave New Brunswick to be successful. We are successful. This is our community. And so I want people to feel like New Brunswick is the place where you can come and stay and build, have kids, put those kids in our schools, and that they can do that same thing. And so when I'm sitting around meetings, it's astonishing sometimes how continuous those patterns are, table to table, whether I'm sitting with corporations, residents, institutions. I think by and large, those patterns, they really don't change because they all come down to quality of life issues.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it makes me think of literally why I started We Love Hope City, is to shift the thinking in regards to how people view the quality of life here in New Brunswick and start highlighting the positive happenings here in the city of New Brunswick. So the question we have from Sean is, how do we as a community include mental health and physical wellness?
That's a great question. I think I'll talk about mental health first, because I think that's a bit more complex. And I think in minority communities, we have, and as been evidenced by the pandemic, we have a long way to go when it comes to acknowledging the magnitude of mental health. And so I think it starts with destigmatizing mental health. I think it then progresses to access to healthcare. I think because mental health services can be so personal, really that cultural sensitivity and awareness from practitioner to client, and understanding the racial trauma that we deal with, the immigration trauma that we deal with, and making sure that our therapeutic models and our therapeutic treatment plans are speaking to those, I think is going to be very important. And then I think just the ability to create broad-based messaging that really lets the community know and provides a series of reminders that mental health and physical health, one and the same, one and the same, the psycho and the soma, and that when we feel our best up here, it's going to translate to in here and vice versa. It's not something to be left behind or to be ashamed of. Mental health, to the contrary, I think really we need to look at in the exact same way that we look at physical health, and we need to manage our mental health and make sure that our self-care is something that we're prioritizing, especially this year, where we've seen so much grief, so much trauma. We're living in, a year that's unlike many other things. When we look at the pandemic and we look at who's being affected most by the pandemic, it's minority communities, low-income communities. When we look at the economic job loss that we've seen, minority communities, And so I think those two things, in addition to this racial reckoning that we're dealing with and understanding, the impact that racism also has on our mental health, and making sure that we are conscious about those things, that we don't just suppress them and suppress them over the course of a lifetime, but that we're actively engaging ourselves in these conversations.
So you mentioned trauma, and when you mentioned trauma, I thought we have to start taking the necessary action in an effort to tackle that trauma, right? And overcome the trauma within, especially our communities of color. What are your thoughts on the state of mental health and wellness in communities of color as opposed to predominantly white communities?
I think because of institutional and systemic racism, I think communities of color are less likely to access mental health resources. And I think even when they do, there is a pattern of sometimes a misdiagnosis, especially in men of color. And so oftentimes that leads to treatment plans that aren't necessarily as effective as they could be. And I also think that we still deal by and large with a stigma. We don't want to be crazy, or we don't want to be, that guy who has this or that girl who has that. And I think until we're willing to have conversations about mental health, then our ability to access it, to talk about it, to really take care of ourselves in the way that we need to be fully present for others, we won't be able to accomplish that. And so it's going to take our full selves to get out of this moment. And so I'd encourage everybody to make sure that they're participating in self-care, that they're accessing resources around them, and that they're prioritizing their mental health.
So for those who may need additional help in regards to knowing how to access the adequate resources, what would you suggest?
So I would suggest if they're a student in New Brunswick and their school has a school-based program, to absolutely access that. We have licensed clinical social workers at 4 of the schools in New Brunswick. Actually, now at 5 of the schools. We're adding one at New Brunswick Middle School. And so to make sure that they're accessing those resources. And if you're an adult, our Live Well platform is actually a wealth of information about everything from how you can eat better to how you can exercise and get some, physical activity and integrated into your life. And additionally, how you can access mental health resources. So I would definitely encourage them to visit our Live Well Vivir Bien platform and check out some of the great resources that are over there.
Got it. And we speak a lot about, there's so much going on right now, right? Offline, we have a lot of conversations when it comes to just community, the state of our communities, community development, business, systems. What is your take on everything that's happening right now? How do you organize the thoughts that are in your mind from your work with New Brunswick Tomorrow to your ambition and desire to just want to make and create a better place for not only youth, but citizens, constituents, and people within our communities? How do you currently navigate through a lot of the noise that's happening in regards to what you envision for yourself and your role to help to create better communities?
You know, Chris, I'm just incredibly blessed because I feel like my work in New Brunswick Tomorrow aligns so closely with my personal value system, you know, and so I don't have to divorce my willingness or desire to create change in the world with the work that I do at MBT. You know, and so every day that I show up for work and we're running you know, college and career summer camp, or we're providing mental health services to youth and families, or we're doing food distribution, you know, during the middle of a pandemic, I see firsthand the lives that we're able to impact. You know, and so for me, the way that I organize my thoughts, or the way that I'm navigating this experience, one is day by day, definitely day by day.
Right.
But two, in understanding that, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles, it really does begin with a single step. And so I think Bill Gates said that we tend to overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 10. And so for me, it's about constant progress and making sure that I'm never leaving anything on the table, that I'm showing up every day, bringing my whole self to work and putting in 100% day after day, because I really do believe that although progress is not linear, when we are resolute, progress is attained. And our struggle for equality, for freedom, for liberation, it belongs to each generation. And so I think our generation is now up. You know, we are now up. The baton is being passed. You and I had a conversation last weekend about some of our greats passing away, right? John Lewis, C.T. Vivian. You know, the generations are changing, and so with that, the responsibility and the accountability also shifts. And so I do feel that. I feel that as a good weight on my shoulders, and something that, you know, when I lay my head down on the pillow, I want to be satisfied that I did everything I could for my community.
So with that shift, what are some words of encouragement you would share with the generation that's behind us and the younger people coming up?
Oh, I love the generation that's behind us. I actually, that generation, Gen Z, to all my Gen Zers, I love their passion. I love their passion. I love their, you know, just unapologetic attitude that they have about them. They are not shy in terms of vocalizing what they believe, and I love
Yeah.
that. And so my words of encouragement to them would be keep pressing, enroll others in your vision, be resolute, and make sure that your values are never sacrificed for convenience. Make sure that you are living and walking your truth and your values, and don't forget to bring people up with you. So when you ascend, it's not enough for you to ascend, but you have to bring your community, your people, your tribe with you. And that's that deep satisfaction, that deep reward that you're looking for.
Facts, facts. You definitely sound like a future congresswoman.
Not at all, not at all. Just the director of MBT. That's it.
Got it. So, what would you say is next for you, MBT? Any upcoming projects? What should we be keeping in mind?
So at MBT, I think we're all always busy. You know, lots going on at MBT. I think the past couple months has really brought racial equity front and center for us at MBT. So we've been having a series of conversations about what that means. This morning, actually, we had about a 2-hour long conversation about ways that we can adjust our paradigm and our lens on racial equity and make sure that it's pervasive throughout our work. All of our pillars of work, we are doing everything we can, you know, kind of doing our own internal audit of our own programs and initiatives and making sure that they're equitable across the board. And, you know, we're really soon looking forward to enrolling other community-based organizations, institutions, our funders, into our vision on how we can create a more equitable society in that same mission that we have of moving people forward.
Awesome. And what's the best way for us to stay in touch with your work as well as the work of New Brunswick Tomorrow?
Well, definitely I'll give you my email, jbland@nbtomorrow.org, our website, nbtomorrow.org. We also have a newsletter that my director of development, Kelly, will have to be very upset with me if I didn't mention, that comes out weekly or every other week. And so I think that's a great way. It's the newsletter is actually probably the most current way to stay abreast of our work and what we're doing. And so if anyone's interested, please reach out. We love hearing from people in the community. And I think it's really that diverse set of perspectives that makes our work so strong and so robust in terms of representing all the voices throughout our community.
Got it. And before we let you go, are there any questions from the audience? Here we go. Let's see. I'm not sure if this was mentioned, but are there steps being taken to assist those? So what are your thoughts on that question?
So I'm just wondering, permanently displaced, does that mean, I want to make sure I'm answering it in the way that it's being asked. So if you could just type in the box what exactly you're referring to when we say permanently displaced. Does that mean evicted or? What I'll say broadly is that through our community response fund, that homeless, to be frank. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so the homeless population. Actually, let me go back to the community response fund, and then I'll go to the homeless. But what I'll say about the community response fund is that it was an effort by New Brunswick Tomorrow, the city of New Brunswick, Catholic Charities, the community food banks, PRAB, the public schools, so many across the board that really were able to come together in an advisory capacity and talk about how we could pool our resources to focus on three major areas: rent and rental assistance, especially during these first few months of the pandemic, food distribution, and mental health. And so for those three areas, when we talk about permanent displacement, I would be lying if I said we were doing enough. I would be lying if I said we were doing enough. But what I will say is that we have been able to keep hundreds, if not thousands, of people in their homes as a result of our rental assistance programs. And so we're looking forward to hearing from Aretha Williams on other ways that we can be doing more. I would be remiss to say that, hey, we're doing enough and that's it. But if there are areas or ways where we can do more, where people have ideas and want to reach out to us to engage, I'd be happy to. Actually, I would welcome the conversation. And so what I would say about that is that our rental assistance is probably the area that comes the closest to addressing those who are at a threat of being displaced. But there's so much room to be doing more, particularly around the area of housing during this time, during both an economic collapse and, quite frankly, a housing pandemic that has resulted as a result of this public health pandemic.
Hey, Leticia.
Leticia, yes. School base in the house.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I love what you said, and I love the question as well. And that speaks to the platform we have this evening, is bridging that gap and allowing for these conversations and dialogues to happen in kind of a town hall style, where if this wasn't happening right now, you wouldn't see that question. And who knows what this question might lead to. Anyone can feel free to get in touch with New Brunswick Tomorrow. It's at New Brunswick Tomorrow on Instagram, as well as across social media, I believe. I think on Twitter, it's at NB Tomorrow. That's the social media strategist in me. So before we close out, right, with that question of homelessness, what came to mind for me is root cause analysis, right? Understanding why is this happening and really getting to the root cause, such as, crime and poverty. I was reading How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi, right?
Love that book. Yep.
A lot of it comes down to really analyzing, like, okay, if we have crime in these communities, why do we have crime? What is the correlation between poverty and crime? If we can alleviate poverty by providing opportunities and jobs, will that also alleviate crime, right? So I would encourage everyone to really begin to thinking about why these issues that we see are happening. Yes, we have homelessness. Why is this happening? And then why is that happening? So that collectively as a community, we can work together to address these issues, whether it's the Civic League, New Brunswick Tomorrow, YSS, New Brunswick Public Schools. We all have to come together and sit at the table to really work as a collective community to make better happen and make change happen and make progress happen as Jian was so eloquently speaking and vocalizing throughout the theme of this conversation. So, Jian, thank you so much. New Brunswick Tomorrow, the Civic League. It's been wonderful. Do you have any closing thoughts for us?
Well, I'm honored, just to be a part of this platform. I've been following it, the different people who have been on here. I'm honored to be in that class. And so I just want to thank the Civic League, We Love Hub City, yourself, Sean, everybody for having me on the platform. And I would just say, these issues, they speak to my heart, because our collective legacy is on the line here. When our kids read about us and they say, hey, what did you do? Or our grandkids read about us and they say, hey, what do you do? I really want to be in a position where we said, we made something happen. We bettered the world on your behalf. And so, for me, progress isn't linear, but that collective legacy is at stake. And I really hope that, for all those listening now and maybe in the future, that they're inspired by this conversation, that they're energized by our conversation, and that ultimately that they choose to engage in this work, because although it's tough, it is the most rewarding.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. And one additional question, how will others know of your efforts?
I think for that, we try our best to be active on social media, to put out our newsletter, to update our website. And so we're trying, our best through a variety of communication modalities to get the word out about our efforts, about our work, by doing things like this, where we come and speak about our work. So feel free to check us out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, to subscribe to our newsletter, to visit our website. All of those are really great resources that I think speak to the breadth of New Brunswick Tomorrow's work, not just the youth space, which I predominantly spoke about today, but to all the work that we do and all the work that we engage in. And so please check us out.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Jian, again for joining us this evening. For all of our guests, thank you for joining us. Episode 7, and we will see you in the future. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Enjoy your evening. Enjoy your week. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Awesome.